inability to say no is one of the most common ways people quietly destroy their mental peace, professional momentum, and self-respect. Most people are conditioned from a young age to view refusal as an act of hostility, selfishness, or social betrayal. They operate under a subconscious belief that keeping the peace with others requires sacrificing their own time, energy, and priorities. As a result, when asked for a favor, an extra project, or a social commitment they have zero desire to fulfill, their knee-jerk reaction is a hesitant, reluctant yes. Blanchen, this chronic disease of people-pleasing, creates a toxic cycle. Every time you say yes to someone else, when your mind is screaming no, you are actively saying no to your own goals, your rest, and your personal boundaries. Over time, this builds deep-seated resentment, not just toward the people making demands on your life, but toward yourself. For lacking the courage to hold the line, you end up overworked, emotionally drained, and surrounded by people who have learned that your time holds zero value because you treat it as if it is free. Dale Carnegie emphasized that authentic human relations are built on mutual respect and absolute sincerity, not fake compliance. Pleasing people at the expense of your own integrity is not kindness. It is covert dishonesty. When you agree to something out of obligation, fear, or guilt, you deliver subpar effort, harbor hidden bitterness, and erode trust. True social authority and deep professional respect belong to those who manage their time with clear, unyielding boundaries and communicate their limits with radical clarity and absolute warmth. Okay, saying no without feeling guilty is not a personality trait you are born with. It is a high-level psychological skill that can be mastered. The guilt you feel when declining a request stems from a distorted mental model that confuses setting a boundary with causing harm. You assume that saying no will make the other person hate you, judge you, or cast you out. In reality, mature people respect individuals who know their limits, while manipulators are the only ones who get angry when you enforce them. To break free from guilt-driven compliance, you must first reframe the act of refusal in your own mind. Saying no is not an attack, it is an act of stewardship over your limited lifetime energy. In the next section, we will break down the exact psychological mechanics of eliminating over-explanation. The single biggest mistake that destroys your authority and invites people to push past your boundaries. Establishing firm boundaries with warmth protects your time and energy without sacrificing mutual respect. The single biggest trap people fall into when attempting to say no is the destructive habit of over-explaining. When asked to do something they cannot or do not want to do, anxious people deliver a rambling monologue of excuses, logistical details, and emotional justifications. They explain their entire schedule, list their personal problems, and practically beg for forgiveness just for having a prior commitment. They believe that providing a long, elaborate excuse cushions the blow and proves they aren't being mean. In reality, over-explaining achieves the exact opposite. It destroys your authority, projects internal insecurity, and invites the other person to dismantle your boundary piece by piece. When you offer a long list of justifications, you transform a firm boundary into an open debate. You hand the requester a list of leverage points they can easily negotiate around. You over-explaining. Oh, I wish I could help you move this Saturday, but I have to run errands in the morning, and then I need to take my dog to the vet at 2, and I'm just so exhausted from work. Request and negotiating. That's fine. We're moving all afternoon anyway. Just come over after the vet around 3:30. Notice what happened. Because you provided a granular list of obstacles instead of a definitive refusal, the requester simply solved your obstacles for you. You are now cornered into either agreeing or manufacturing yet another awkward excuse. Dale Carnegie taught that clarity and conviction in communication build immense trust. While hesitation invites friction, high-status communicators understand that no is a complete sentence, and a boundary requires zero defense. When you state a clear refusal without burying it under a mountain of excuses, you signal to the room that your time is valuable and your decisions are non-negotiable. Lems to eliminate over-explanation effortlessly. Deploy the short refusal protocol. Lead with warmth and appreciation. Acknowledge the offer or request directly without dramatic apology. Deliver a clear, concise refusal. State that you cannot fulfill the request without detailing every minor reason why. Pivot or close cleanly. Offer an alternative if appropriate, or simply stop talking. Amended, consider how much stronger this framework sounds in practice. No, thank you for thinking of me for this project. Unfortunately, my current priorities won't allow me to take this on right now. I hope it goes brilliantly. And notice the absolute strength of that statement. It contains zero unnecessary excuses, zero self-flagellation, and zero weak openings for negotiation. You express genuine warmth while holding an immovable line. Amden. If the requester pushes further with an invasive, "Why, what else do you have going on?" do not panic or break character. Reiterate your boundary using the broken record technique with a calm smile and steady tone. "Yeah, my schedule is fully committed right now, so I won't be able to make it work." Challenges. When you master the discipline of concise refusal, you stop asking for permission to manage your own life. You state your availability as a simple, unassailable fact, stripping away the guilt and leaving your authority completely intact. Mandy, in the next section, we will explore how to handle aggressive boundary pushers, guilt trips, and emotional manipulation without losing your cool or backing down. Delivering a concise, polite refusal without over-explaining protects your time while projecting unshakable authority. The true test of your boundary-setting ability is not saying no to reasonable people who respect your time. It is holding your ground against chronic boundary pushers and master guilt trippers. These are individuals who have grown accustomed to your compliance. They view your boundaries not as reasonable limits, but as personal insults or obstacles to be overcome. When you finally refuse their demands, they do not smile politely and walk away. They deploy subtle psychological weapons: guilt, passive-aggressive digs, dramatic sighs, or accusations of selfishness. A Bundy pusher. Wow. I guess you're just too important to help out your friends these days? Or after everything I've done for you, you can't even spare 1 hour. The immediate physiological reaction to a guilt trip is an intense spike of internal panic. Your brain interprets their disapproval as a threat to the social relationship, urging you to retract your refusal, apologize profusely, and surrender just to make the discomfort stop. This is the exact trap the guilt tripper has set. They rely on your emotional discomfort to force your compliance. M.D. Dale Carnegie emphasized that when navigating high-friction interpersonal dynamics, you must never allow another person's emotional dysregulation to dictate your behavior. When someone launches a guilt trip, they are attempting to make their emotional state your personal responsibility. High-status thinkers recognize that while you are responsible for communicating with clarity and kindness, you are never responsible for how another person chooses to interpret a healthy boundary. Bang to disarm guilt trips and emotional manipulation effortlessly. Deploy these three high leverage psychological frameworks. Now, first, execute the neutral acknowledgement. Do not debate the validity of their guilt trip. Do not get defensive. And do not launch a counterattack. Acknowledge their disappointment with calm, low register empathy. And immediately restate your position without shifting an inch. No. I understand this puts you in a tough spot, but my decision stands. Gened by refusing to fight back or defend yourself, you rob their manipulation of its fuel. You show them that emotional pressure tactics have zero power over your choices. Second, separate the person from the request. A common guilt tactic is conflating your refusal of a task with the rejection of the relationship. Make it explicitly clear that you value the person, but the request itself is a non-starter. And I care about you and our relationship immensely, but I am simply unable to take on this task. Damn the third. Use the intentional delay. Never allow a persistent requester to force an immediate answer on the spot. Boundary pushes thrive on forcing you to make a decision before your logical brain can evaluate the trade-offs. Whenever you feel pressured or uncertain, deploy an unyielding buffer phrase. I make it a rule never to commit to new obligations on the spot. Let me review my current commitments and get back to you by tomorrow. Man, that simple pause creates an immediate firewall between your knee-jerk, people-pleasing instinct and your strategic judgment. It gives you the space to craft a calm, concise refusal from a position of absolute peace rather than emotional pressure. Gents. When you refuse to bend under the weight of guilt trips, a remarkable shift occurs. The manipulators who relied on your compliance will slowly retreat, while the mature, high-value individuals in your life will respect your clarity even more. But in the next section, we will examine how to apply strategic refusals in high-stakes professional environments, allowing you to say no to managers and senior leaders without damaging your career trajectory. Neutralizing guilt trips with calm acknowledgement and firm boundaries strips emotional manipulation of its leverage. Saying no in a casual social setting is challenging, but declining a request in a high-stakes professional environment can feel like career suicide. When a manager, senior executive, or valued client drops a massive project on your desk, your natural fear is that a direct refusal will make you look lazy, uncooperative, or incapable. Driven by the dread of being passed over for promotions or labeled a poor team player, ambitious professionals routinely accept workloads that push them directly into burnout and subpar performance. Man, the paradox of professional achievement is that the better you are at your job, the more work people will dump on your plate. If you accept every task without pushback, you become an execution bottleneck, overwhelmed, stressed, and delivering mediocre results across dozens of scattered projects. High-performing leaders do not say yes to everything. They guard their bandwidth fiercely so they can deliver exceptional quality. On the vital few initiatives that actually move the needle. Dale Carnegie stressed that effective workplace communication requires framing your actions around shared objectives and mutual benefit. When saying no to a superior, a blunt, rigid refusal like "I don't have time for this" comes across as insubordinate because it ignores the business's priorities. Conversely, blindly accepting the work and failing to deliver damages your professional credibility beyond repair. The secret to declining high-level workplace demands lies in trade-off framing and priority alignment. Malia. Instead of treating a new request as a binary decision between yes and no, reframe the conversation around capacity and priority trade offs. You're not refusing to work, you are asking the decision maker to help you allocate your finite bandwidth for maximum impact. Bends. When a boss drops a new high priority assignment on your lap, deploy the priority realignment framework. Yo, manager, I need you to take over the QSAN analytics report and have a full draft ready by Thursday. When you strategic refusal, I would be happy to take ownership of the QSAN analytics report. Right now, my bandwidth is fully committed to finishing the client onboarding system for Friday's deadline. If I shift my focus to the report today, the onboarding system will be delayed by a week. Which of these two objectives would you prefer I prioritize? Okay, notice the absolute brilliance of this approach. You never actually said the word no. You demonstrated total willingness to help while laying out the objective operational trade-offs with complete transparency. You shifted the burden of prioritization back onto the manager, where it belongs, forcing them to choose which project gets delayed. Mud. If you are dealing with cross-departmental requests or peer demands that threaten your schedule, use counteroffer refinement. I can't take on the full project management role for this launch, but I can review the final strategy deck for an hour on Wednesday and give you my notes. Limbed. By offering a smaller, well-defined scope of assistance, you show immense goodwill while keeping your core schedule completely protected. Mean that when you master trade-off framing, you stop being a passive task absorber. You position yourself as a strategic, high-value professional who manages corporate resources with discipline, commands executive respect, and protects their career trajectory with unshakable poise. In our final movement, we will synthesize these lessons into an untouchable lifetime system for living boundary-led, guilt-free life filled with deep self-respect and unyielding personal peace. Okay? Reframing workplace refusals around priority trade-offs protects your bandwidth while demonstrating strategic leadership. Mastering the art of saying no without guilt is ultimately an act of radical self-respect and long-term life design. It is the realization that your time, emotional energy, and mental focus are finite resources that cannot be recovered once squandered. When you stop operating out of fear of disappointment and begin leading with intentional boundaries, your entire existence transforms. You shift from a reactive state of chronic fatigue to a proactive position of absolute clarity, unyielding peace, and authentic presence. MBA and Dale Carnegie's enduring philosophy centers on building meaningful, honest relationships anchored in sincerity and mutual dignity. People-pleasing is a false substitute for connection. It trades genuine respect for temporary approval. When you have the courage to say no with warmth, clarity, and conviction, you signal to the world that you honor your commitments, including the commitments you make to yourself. High-value individuals, while boundary pushers will quickly realize that their guilt trips hold zero sway over your life. Embleans, as you step forward with this untouchable system, internalize these core rules of guilt-free boundary enforcement. Protect your bandwidth first. Recognize that every time you say yes to something trivial, you are saying no to your true priorities. Mingded eliminate over-explanation. State your refusal concisely. Avoid laundry lists of excuses and let no stand as a complete statement. Gent, neutralize guilt trips with calm empathy. Acknowledge the other person's disappointment without compromising your stance or defending your self-worth. Ambient frame professional boundaries around trade-offs. Align workload demands with strategic priorities rather than absorbing infinite tasks. Blend. Living a boundary-led life requires consistent practice, but the rewards are immediate and profound. You reclaim hundreds of hours of lost time, eliminate resentment from your relationships, and cultivate an unshakable inner calm. When you command your own boundaries with quiet confidence, you naturally command respect from everyone around you, building a life defined not by obligations forced upon you, but by the conscious choices you make. Enforcing healthy boundaries with warmth and conviction preserves your vital energy and commands lasting respect